Mothers of Exceptional Children Beyond the Journey podcast is a heartwarming and inspiring podcast that delves into the unique experiences and stories of mothers who are raising exceptional children. This incredible platform offers a safe space for these amazing women to share their triumphs, challenges, and everything in between as they navigate the extraordinary journey of parenting children with special needs. Each episode is filled with insightful discussions, valuable resources, and heartfelt conversations that aim to empower, uplift, and connect mothers from all walks of life. Whether you're a mother seeking support, guidance, or simply looking to gain a deeper understanding of the beautiful complexities of raising exceptional children, this podcast is a must listen.
Greetings, beloved. My name is Sharalene Wheeler-Reaves, and the title of my chapter is The Upside of Downs. In the beginning, I didn't seek any outside resources whatsoever. I was a 3-time award-winning mother with 3 amazing daughters, ages 17, 16, and 15. I had worked in the medical field extensively, and I had seen plenty of babies and small children in my community who were born with Down syndrome. I thought, how much different could it be? He's a baby. He needs what every baby needs, right? I've always prided myself on being a source of good information. Rarely will I say I don't know. Now, although I may not know, I am about to find out. And if I know, then so will the next parent. Information, resources, and the ability to utilize them has been one of the most valuable superpowers I've been granted being a parent of an exceptional one. I never stop asking how, why, and especially why not. Here's the upside of Downs. You see, the fact is Kameron was born with Down syndrome. Kameron will live his entire life with Down syndrome. And when Kameron leaves this place, he will leave it with a Down syndrome trait. But that does not define or limit who he is. Very early on, I knew that he had the right to have the life that anyone else would choose to have, even though he may not understand how to make those choices. So in high school, I wanted him to participate in every extracurricular activity and to have access to friends and social events. I wanted him to have his senior year in high school and have the ability to do the most. And I want him to continue that for the rest of his life. And he will.
Welcome, Sharalene, to the podcast. It's so wonderful to have you here. I'm excited to dive into the conversation today with you about your exceptional, amazing young man.
Thank you. Thank you. I am honored and grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So I'm just going to dive right in because we're here and let's go. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about your amazing family. Of course, I know you will include Kameron in that.
Okay, well, I am a mother of, as you said, 4 incredible children, 3 daughters. My wonderful son, Kameron, Omari Matic, who hangs the sun, the moon, and the stars for anyone who graces his presence. I also am a holistic practitioner. I do a lot of different things with energy work and just trying to be symbiotic with nature and be one. And my passion, though, is doing that or introducing that through bath and body products. I've been making natural bath and body products for almost 20 years. It is my passion, my joy. And through that, I'm able to touch people, touch lives, and kind of get whatever message it is that's coming through me out. I am married to a wonderful young man, Dr. Kenneth Reeves. He's amazing. He came into both me and Cameron's lives later in our journey, but I promise you, there's not a day that goes by where we look at each other and one of us says, we have not just been doing this. We've done this in other lifetimes. We've done this for a lifetime. And so it's just a beautiful life that we have in addition to this beautiful child that we share.
Amazing. And yes, I would absolutely agree. It is such a joy to be in the presence of you and your family when we do see each other. And that is now often, now that I'm here in the area. And I wanted to ask you, can you share a defining moment in your journey as a mother of a child with special needs? And how did it shape your perspective on parenthood?
Gosh, there's so many moments that define the situation that we're in. But I would say the earliest was, Cameron was about, I don't know, 2 or 3 or whatever. We lived in California, and in California they have a different approach, a different take on exceptional children and exceptional people. Their idea is they will come up with funding for anything, make it very, very easy for you to get it. But once you have that funding, where you go to access the services was always the issue. And I didn't realize that. Had lots of money, just couldn't get matched with the right person to help with this particular exceptional one. And so he was sent to early Head Start, which for the life of me, I cannot imagine why I would even have done that. Only other than because I thought he was going to get the therapies, he was get the integration, he would get the experience with dealing with other children. That was not the case. And that moment, I remember the last time I had to pick him up from there, I was very disheartened for the reason that I was going to pick him up. And it dawned on me, I cannot trust anyone. Unlike my other daughters, who I sent to school based off of what, the system said, and we did it and no problem. But with this one, I knew that it was going to be different. He wasn't going to school. We were going to school. He wasn't being taught and treated. We were being taught and treated. He, however, was not going to be able to be vocal in any of it. Is it working? Is it not working? Are they treating him well or not? So me and my daughters decided that we were always with him. Someone was always, if he had therapy, training, whatever, we were sitting right. All 3 of us usually, we'd be sitting all around it because you're training us and you're showing him, but we wanted to make sure that not the issue, not the diagnosis was being addressed. And so I carried that with me, and I just got more and more tenacious as time went on, and his needs changed and became more heightened. And so that was one of the things that was a defining moment for me, that as much as I thought I was an advocate before he was born and before he came into our lives, I now am. And I'm not just an advocate for him. I'm an advocate. Give me a cause and I'll advocate for it.
Wow. You know what? You're bringing up something as you were speaking. First of all, the fact that your family rallied behind you and rallied behind Kameron, right? And you became like this family unit that, like, it's almost like when you move, I move, just like that, right?
Right.
And that's kind of something that I feel happens a lot in families, especially families that already feel empowered. And I'm glad that you're discussing this, or you're bringing this to the forefront on how important it is to have people rally around you. On a prior podcast, we talked about how important community is. And one of the things that a prior guest shared was, she had this support around her, her neighbors and, different people that she could call on if she had a question or if something came up. And so I just love that. I love how you did not shrink, but you decided that you were going to learn and be present for him, and that your daughters also, made that decision to be present. And I think that's so important. And I think that plays a key part in, why our children can thrive, right? They can thrive
Yeah.
because they have that powerful family support or community support
Yeah.
around them. And
I
so, and all of the things that you were doing to ensure and make sure that he was getting, the care that he deserves, how did you prioritize, or how do you prioritize? Because now, he's older, but you're still in that role of caregiving. How do you prioritize self-care while at the same time, making sure that you provide that care for him?
Well, that's, I think, no matter what cards we're dealt with in life, I think as women, we always find ourselves at this crossroads of self-care. How do we self-care? Do we self-care? When do we self-care? I don't think that this situation is any more different than any other situation where we would have to consider the health of ourselves. And, there's no book. There's no written book that tells, as a matter of fact, the books that are written tells us to be selfless, tells us to give until we can't give anymore and take care of the family. It tells us to do all those things. There's not really a whole lot of voices historically that have told us to stop and take care of yourselves good and well before you attempt to take care of your family. And I would even say the thought should be, as well as you want to take care of everything and everyone, do self first. But that's a wonderful slogan. But fact of the matter is, I have to find time for me. But what I realize is self-care encompasses a lot of different things. Sometimes I can self-care with Kameron with me. Sometimes I can self-care, and while I'm cooking, I love to cook and create. That's why when I'm making soap, it's so magical for me, because that is nourishing to my soul, to myself. I'm slowing down my breathing. I'm slowing down my thinking. I'm literally only thinking about what's right in front of me. So a lot of times I'll get up first thing in the morning and I'll have my day scheduled. I'll take care of everything that needs to be taken care of to that point, and then I go make soap, because that's my peace. That's my joy. Sometimes, I go to the spa. When I leave, I had to learn over years that when I leave him with someone that I trust, if I trusted enough to leave him, then trusted enough to leave the thoughts there. Don't think about it. Don't rush back. And don't worry. I still to this day have to remind myself when I'm out, so he is fine. He is being well taken care of, probably better taken care of than when I was there, because, I'm doting and I'm trying to make sure and trying to do this. So I find moments in the day to do self. And that's it. I don't always have to go, but I do go. I don't always have to have some grand scheme or plan, but I do occasionally.
Oh, I love that. I love, what comes to my mind is like how you holistically do it, right? Like, it's not some kind of like cookie cutter, okay, I need 5 hours this week and this is how I'm gonna do it. It's like,
I don't have that. See, that's my, for me personally, that's my downfall. I don't have 5 hours in a day. I may not have, logistically looking at my schedule, I may not have 5 hours in the week, but I promise you, if I take the opportunity to peel away everything else and find the moments, the minutes, that, the time within time, with, the time, with make time stand still so that I can have time for me. When I do it that way, I find that I've been relaxed. I haven't been stressed. I'm much more happier and engaged when we all are together. But I can do that. If I know that he's being taken care of, if I know if Babe's taken care of and Cameron's taken care of, I can sit with self and just literally do nothing. And when I tell you that's the most guilty feeling that I have, is when the family around me is moving, doing whatever, because that's what they want to do. And I've done all of that for everyone. And I just want to sit. I still feel guilty. I do it. And sometimes I have to remind my partner, I'm like, I've been up nonstop for 5 hours doing this, that, and the other. I'm going to sit, and when I say it like that, and he knows it, but it's just the remembrance of, he knows it. So when I sit, I sit. Or when I go listen to music, I listen to music. Or when I want to drive in the country, okay, I create a moment so that I can go drive in the country. And I'm in the car by myself, listening to watercolors or listening to small music. For me, that's self-care. I'm happy. That's it.
Yes, yes. Again, this is a very, very important aspect. I think a lot of moms will take away a lot of good lessons from what you've just shared, because sometimes we feel like it's either or we don't feel like we deserve it
Exactly.
at all.
That's
right?
We don't deserve it.
And even though you said that, you still may have that feeling of you shouldn't be doing it, or whatever the thought is, it's like it's there, but you still can weave it in. And then also too, what you talked about when you said leaving him with someone, having someone take care of him while maybe you go to the spa, that you're telling yourself, hey, if you trusted this person enough in the beginning to do it, to leave the thought there. And I think, again, that's something very important for moms or caretakers to hear, because maybe there's this thing that comes up in us, especially as moms, like, this is our baby. And then on top of it, they have whatever condition or diagnosis that they have, which is not who they are, but it's a piece of
yes, it's a piece of the puzzle.
Right? Knowing that if you've trusted this person to trust it and, go and do the thing that, the spa or whatever it is, take a drive. I do that quite often. Like, I get in the car and I just drive because I don't know. There's something magical about driving nowhere.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Right. And, in the beginning of the interview, you were talking about California and, how different it is there. The money is available. I guess the issue was finding the place. So now that you're here on the East Coast, what are some strategies that you use to advocate for his needs within the system, whether that's educational? Well, now he's post-educational,
right?
But like, right, whether it's post-educational or whether it's the healthcare system, what are some strategies you could share with our audience?
Well, there's a thought that I've heard people say, and I totally agree with it. When we take our car into the shop, we take it in to someone who we feel is an expert, and we expect them to be able to diagnose it and then to repair it without us knowing anything. And I think as women, we know that that's not necessarily true, because if we don't know something about what's going on, if we don't know something about what they're going to tell us, they can tell us anything and nothing will get done. We'll waste our time, we'll waste our money, we'll waste our effort, and still it's not done. And then we look to that expert and say, well, you're supposed to know. And I'm like, no, but it's your car. It's your car. You've had that car. And if you've had it, you should have researched something about it. And if it's been making a noise, you should have checked into it. So I kind of look at, especially with Kameron, because, everybody wants to put, even, with Down syndrome, which is his primary diagnosis,
everyone wants to put them in the box. Well, they have this ages and stages and the expectations. And my first response now is, who created that ages and stages? Who did they create it for? Because they didn't create it for my guy. It doesn't fit. We will create our own. And based off of our own, when I go in to see someone, to talk to someone about Kameron, I take that along with me. They have a book that fits a box, that fits a perfect case scenario. Kameron's not going to be in that book. I brought our book. Let's go over it. And I'm adamant about that. I'm very serious. I've researched. Not to say that I know more than they know, but I have some questions and some suggestions. And it's not just going to be, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to do this and we're going to do that coming from the doctor. It's dialogue. It's an open dialogue. A lot of times, even for ourselves, we don't advocate or we don't stand up and ask the question. I have more knowledge about me and Kameron than any doctor, any professor, any science. Now, they have information that can help us, but if I don't point them toward where we need our help, they're going to start at the top. Because when everybody walks into their office, they start at the top. They have their procedure. We're not at the top. None of that pertains to us. Let's get to the meat of what it is. And I've had that mentality for quite a long time. It transfers over to a lot of things. And sometimes it's a lot. However, I'm willing to be a lot, because I am willing to learn and to make mistakes when it comes to me. But when it comes to him, I'm not willing to make a mistake where I could have asked a question or suggested something or simply said, no, we're not interested in that, and have unwanted outcome. I can't control the outcome, but what I can control is the input.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I cannot stress that enough. As a mom with a child with special needs, an exceptional child, that you know your child better than anyone, any doctor, any therapist, I don't care who they are, any teacher, anybody. You know your child, and you know what that child needs better than anyone. And this makes me think about what I wrote about in my chapter, how when Kisma was born, I had to do all this research because we didn't have the internet at our fingertips like we do now. Just to get a general idea about Down syndrome, because I didn't know. The only thing I had seen was, Life Goes On. It was a TV show, and Corky.
Right. Corky.
And that was all I knew. I didn't know lifespan. I didn't know anything. And so I poured into like all these different books. And in the meantime, I'm taking her to the doctor, and, she's, they were saying she wasn't thriving, right? She
right.
The failure to thrive. Because of, the low muscle tone and all the things that come with Down syndrome. And they kept saying, oh, she's not gaining weight. She's not gaining weight. And, I'm doing my research, and I come across that there's a whole different weight and height chart for children with Down syndrome.
Exactly.
And so my pediatrician, who, of course, as a pediatrician, she's gone to school for 12 or more years, it never dawned on her to like, hey, let me find a chart for this baby who has Down syndrome.
Exactly.
So she's constantly falling off of it. I go in there with the chart, and I'm like, hey, here's the chart for her. Right. And when she started, recording her according to the height and weight chart for babies with Down syndrome, then of course she's fine.
And see, I had just the opposite experience, California and Georgia. We were connected to, at the very, very beginning, Kameron had a stroke when he was 3 years old. So from the age of 0 to 3, we were with Kaiser. During his stroke, because Kaiser couldn't diagnose, they didn't have the right machines or whatever, Kaiser sent us over to Children's Hospital. We were inpatient. They sent us to Children's Hospital. We got there.
and just the whole way that they perceived and did everything, testing, everything. And when they were finished and ready to send us back to Kaiser, and I was not happy with Kaiser, by the way, was not happy. They had already sent us home twice in one day, telling us that he was just lethargic, nothing was wrong with him, and everything. And so I was not happy with them when they ended up sending us to Children's, because I kept saying, this is more than a seizure. This is not just a seizure. We knew he had seizures. This is different. And they would not listen because they didn't have experience with children his age having strokes, nor were they as familiar. They knew he had Down syndrome, but they wasn't as familiar with the high rate of children with Down syndrome having strokes and the reasons why. So when Children's was ready to send me back, they said, look, they're not going to be able to adequately going forward, be able to assist his needs. However, we are. I was so grateful for the social worker who came in, because she says, I have all the paperwork. I've taken the privilege of already doing it. All you have to do is sign it and we'll get him switched, which was a big thing. It was a big thing to have your medical switched, because I wasn't paying for it. It was the state. She says, it is not a problem. From that point on, he went with children. So when we came to Georgia, he was with children. But I always had the charts, and I was given that by his primary doctor, which was a genetic specialist. The one thing that I knew is he had Down syndrome. So his situations were not going to be typical. He was having heart issues at 2 months old. I'm not taking him to a regular cardiologist that's dealing with 65-year-olds, because he's not going to be able to relate. And I always said, he has to be a pediatrician that is a genetic specialist. Don't just send me to a pediatric cardiologist, because he's not going. And I would always say that I would fight sometimes, or I would do my research and I would go in and I would say, look, this is what you use and this is how you look at it, but here's Down syndrome compared to that. Let's talk. Before we even have our appointment, let's talk. I want you to refer me to somebody else, because I want you to acknowledge that you won't be able to address his needs the same way, because all of the criteria that you're going to use, he's already under or won't be able to meet that. So we're not going to say we can't treat him. There's nothing you can do, because you can't see him in a different box. He's not in this box. He's over here. Let's create the box. And as we go along, let's see why. So my experience was a little bit different, where I already knew that there was the ages and stages and all of that, which was interesting. But the other thing I know in the back of my mind is he's always going to be exactly where he's supposed to be. And how do we meet him there and treat him there? That's it. I don't want you to tell me that he's shorter and chunkier. We know this. How do we service him where he is, as opposed to starting from a deficit? This is his norm. How do we treat from there?
Exactly. So I want to shift our conversation just a little bit, and I want us to talk about what it was like for you writing the book. And first of all, the first question I want to ask you is, what is the title of your chapter, and why did you choose that title?
Sure. The title of my chapter is The Upside of Downs. And I vaguely remember, like you said, there was no internet back in the day. And I remember different manuscripts or reports or something that we would look at when we went to the genetic specialist office, because they would have stuff pertaining to our children. And one of the articles that one of the parents had written was called The Upside of Downs. And I remember sitting there thinking, Kameron had to be maybe 6 months old, just a joy, just a bumbling joy. His feet never touched the ground. We didn't know if he could walk or not, and we didn't care. And we were sitting in the waiting room, and I looked at the article and I said, The Upside of Downs. And I remember Kalia asked me, my youngest daughter, she was 16, what is Downs? She had no idea he had Down syndrome. The only one who knew was my eldest, because she was at the hospital with me. Other than that, we're not treating Downs. We're treating the baby. And this baby has to go to this doctor for this reason. And that's pretty much how I thought of it. So when she asked me, what is Downs? All I remember thinking is I never want to have to explain to someone the horror that some people may have witnessed, may feel, or may have experienced. I always wanted to be up and positive. So when I got an opportunity to write my own chapter, there's negatives in everything, but we never talk about those negatives. I didn't want to talk about any negatives per se. I didn't want to lead with that. I want them to be aware, but I didn't want to lead with it. So I wanted to call my chapter The Upside of Downs, because there's more ups than there are downs.
Certainly, certainly. I love that. I love that. And that's leading me to something else. The other day, a friend asked me a very interesting question. I'm going to ask you this question because I was stumped. I'll be honest with you. I was stumped when she asked, because it never crossed my mind. And the question is, have you ever sat down with Kameron to explain to him about Down syndrome?
So the quick answer is, well, maybe. It depends, because the level of understanding changes, not even, I wouldn't even say it goes up. It just changes depending on where he is. I remember talking to him specifically when a series came out. It was a series about a bunch of kids. I think it was probably Southern California or Canada. That's where the series usually comes from. And it was a bunch of peers. They were all older than Kameron, but they were navigating adulthood. And so they were showing their lives, their dating lives, their recreation, what they did for their jobs. And so I was fascinated by this because I wanted to see potentially what was ahead for him. So I sat down and we started watching, and I thought, this is great. This is amazing. And Kameron, he will never come down and just watch TV with me, especially me. I'm mom. He doesn't want to be around mom. He doesn't want to be around. He wants to be a cool kid, And so I bribed him to come sit down. He looked at the TV screen, and I could tell he was interested because he found a seat on the floor without taking his eyes off the TV and just sat there. He sat there for about 15 or 20 minutes, and it was about dating. One of the guys was dating. And so Cameron, he looked at it, he goes, Mom, his girlfriend. And I said, yeah. And so he looked and he says, he looks like me. And so I thought, great opportunity. I said, yes. I said, he has Down syndrome. And Cameron's like, I have Down syndrome. I said, yes. Isn't it wonderful? And he says, yes. Well, 2 seconds later, he's off. He could care less. A couple of years later, a similar show came on, but this was specifically and only about dating as it relates to special needs. And the primary diagnosis was Down syndrome again. So I had him sit down with me. I promise you, he was only interested because it was dating. He could care less. But what I do notice is when we're out and he sees a child or another young adult, it's almost like a silent acknowledgement of recognition. He'll say, usually he'll say, Mom, I know him. He's my friend. And I'm like, yes. Or he'll walk up to him and he'll, shake his hand. Hey, buddy, how you doing? He doesn't do that he's more social now. He didn't do that back then with just anybody. Usually it was someone that I felt like he had some type of tie or connection that was invisible to us.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I can definitely relate to the part where you talked about he's like, okay, I have Down syndrome. Oh, okay, great. On to the next, right? Because
he said, what if somebody told me, okay, so you're chunky. I'm like, okay, so I've been chunky all my life. Keep it moving.
Right.
It's that I know nothing else.
Right.
This is my norm. This is my base. This is my jump off. Okay. And
right.
What else am I doing today?
Yeah. It's like, so you do you know you're a woman? Like,
right.
What it's like being a woman?
I don't know. I've been one my whole life.
I don't know what else there is outside of being a woman, right? So like, what do you want me to say? And that was the thought that came to my mind when she asked. I'm like, she just knows who she is, and a label or sitting down to like put something on what would that do for her?
Well,
that was like the thought that came to my mind about it.
And here's the thing: everyone has different cognitive awarenesses,
Right.
and cognitive strengths, and and all of our children understand what they understand. But when it becomes it's like anyone else. When the information gets too technical, too difficult, like I went to trigonometry or whatever, graphs and statistics. That was my top. That was it. After that, I'm lost. It doesn't relate to me anymore. And so with him specifically, those are conversations that are outside his realm of understanding and needing to understand.
Right.
See, he understands way more about him than we do anyway.
Come on.
And so because he cannot express that, it doesn't mean that he doesn't know it. He definitely does not lead with that at all. Right. He will never walk up and say, "Hi, my name is Kameron. I have Down syndrome." He will never try to explain or give an excuse for how he is, because that's all he knows. And I really am appreciative that he's not cerebral and trying to dissect, because here comes the question: well, what happened? What did you do? What did my dad do? Who did something wrong? Why am I this way? See, when you and me think too much about shit, that's when we start asking these questions that really have no relevance and really takes us out of self.
Right.
And so I am so appreciative that he ain't there. He don't care.
Right. I mean, that thank you, because I mean, again, that was my thought, is like, why would we care to do that when there's love, when there's laughter, when there's dancing and music and all the, life is such a vast array of an experience, and Down syndrome or having it's just a piece.
It's just a piece. It's just a piece. It's just a piece. It is such a small piece. Now, don't get me wrong. Right. And at times, and for some people, it plays a huge part. But I'm not willing to take that on if that's not for us.
Right.
I will acknowledge that for some people, it is the have all to be all, and it runs their day. I thank goodness that for whatever reason, that's not my, I don't have that relationship with it.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that perspective. And, again, I know this is going to help someone. And I said it last time, and I'll say it again here on this episode. If this podcast episode helps one person, one mother who's just finding out about their child, and they don't know what to do, if they listen to this episode, they will be empowered, informed, and know that they can rise to the occasion.
Yes.
I believe our children are brought to us for a reason. I always say, Goosey Goose, Kissma is my greatest teacher. And I stand firm on that. My greatest teacher. Sometimes she has wisdom in certain situations that I'm like, why didn't I think of that?
And it's wisdom. It's a thread of wisdom that runs throughout everything. It's not just about them. It's not just about me. It's not just about people on the outside. It's literally just about life. Just the simple, basic wisdom that we know. It's not like they're saying something that's never been said. Number one, it's coming from an unexpected source. Is the first thing. Is the first unexpected, genuine, and non-bias. Yeah. That is truth. It's coming from a place of truth.
Yes.
Even when they're shining the mirror back on, even when Kameron shined the mirror back on me on how I was or how I had been, and all I could say was, it worked then, and I'm appreciative for it. And it's not gonna work now. You better get a new trick. And I'm not mad. I'm upset.
Right.
Okay. Because the one thing is to think that, because I've done it this way
for the first 3 kids, almost 15, 17 years, that I'm going to do it that way for everyone. Each one of them in themselves taught me a little bit different, but I still did it cookie cutter. I would go outside the lines. I didn't mind that. But with Kameron, it was like, I'm going to create the cookie cutter. I will create it and I will adapt it every single time that I need to. I don't need to use yours. We have ours.
Right.
We are the cookie cutters. I'm going to get a shirt made like that, Khadijah. I'm going to get a shirt and it's going to say, we are the cookie cutters. And it's going to be the puzzle, the shape for the Down syndrome center.
I love it. Okay, hurry up and trademark that.
Right.
Well, this has been a pleasure. I just want to thank you so much for sharing your perspective today, sharing a piece of your life and what it is like being the mother of an exceptional, and he is quite exceptional, y'all.
Yeah.
I enjoy him so much.
Thank you
so much for being here. Hopefully I can have you come back and share more of your perspective. And
absolutely.
we thank everyone for listening to this episode, and we'll see you on our next show. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm genuinely excited to have you as a part of our Beyond the Journey podcast community. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of exceptional children and their families, one story at a time. I'll see you next time.